Hello and welcome to CT Politics TV. Um, Tonight's guest needs no introduction if you have been in Connecticut politics for a long time. Uh, he's the mayor of Connecticut's largest city, and he's been reelected, I think, 5 terms now. I think this is the 5th term, but he can straighten us out on that. It's hard to keep track. And all successful politicians are controversial, whether it's Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, right? If you've been in the game long enough and you've been successful because you're doing what your constituents want, you get reelected. And there's always critics on one side or another saying this or that or the other thing, but you forge on for your constituents and you realize that you are the leader of everyone in your community. And I think that Joe Ganim exemplifies that, in my opinion. He's been reelected. His people like him. The city is a well-run city. And this is a municipal election year. I have no reason to doubt he wouldn't be reelected to another term. I think that that all Connecticut cities have issues, right? They have crime issues, they have traffic, all the things that cities have in terms of issues that they have to deal with, and a lot of cultural considerations for the people that live there. And economic situations that have to be handled delicately and in a manner that people want, right? And Joe Ganim, in my opinion, has done that successfully. So without further ado, let me bring on my friend, Joe Ganim. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hey, my pleasure. It's been a while, but it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for what you do, being a voice or an opportunity for people to not only watch and enjoy you, but some important topics in Connecticut politics. So it's my pleasure to join you and to be a part of it. So thanks again. As we said, it's been a while, or as I said, it's been a while.
Well, I also want to thank your team. They were great in helping facilitate the interview, and I know that you're very busy down there on city business. Joe, why don't you give us a kind of an update on how Bridgeport's doing and kinds of the things things that you're working on, some of the issues that you're trying to resolve, and what's happening down in Bridgeport.
Well, I think if you put it into a kind of a broader perspective for a moment, and take in not just the last few months, but the last few years. I think in some ways we're all, whether you're in big cities or bigger cities like Bridgeport, or for New Haven in Connecticut, or in smaller towns, there aren't too many places even in the world that aren't kind of still looking over our shoulder or in the rearview mirror a little bit at what was the COVID experience. Thank God, and so many people made it through, but not everybody came away and is sitting here today to talk about it. So that challenge, I think, whether no matter what role or responsibility you have or had in life during that, was a difficult time. But not to dwell on that too much. I think what we've seen now over what has become and hopefully will continue to be an extended period of time is I like to use the words progress, and then I think I mentioned to you before, I would describe it as progress with momentum, accelerating appropriately at a pace that will serve the needs, at least in our city, the needs of so many people. As you said, the largest city by population in the state of Connecticut. And then to begin or to continue what are kind of exciting venues and activities as a center, now referred to sometimes as the music mecca of Connecticut, Sound on Sound, which is a large summer festival, or our outdoor amphitheater, and a variety of other kind of artsy music, entertainment locations or venues in the city, on top of, I would say, or in addition to the improvements of quality of life, infrastructure, um, social needs, public safety that always dominate, at least in part, sometimes the entire conversation. So it's a pleasure. Happy to go into where we are, where I think, which certainly where it's been. I think it touched on where we are and where we're going over the next year. I like to put things not only in a 1 year context, but as you said, these are multiple terms. You come in time cycles, 4 year terms. So I like to look at the
Hmm.
next 5 years, which is really the immediate horizon, I think, for this administration.
Hmm. And just going back to being elected multiple times and serving Bridgeport, why do you think you're successful in your plate? I mean, I have my thoughts on that. I think that you're very humble, you're approachable, you listen to people. But why do you think you've been successful,
Well, I think
like that?
personally, in this role as mayor, which has dominated at least half my life now, or close to it, if you add it all up on and off, um, I think I do my best, and we do our best as I call us as a team or as administration when we listen.
Hmm.
Sometimes, sometimes you have to move quickly, but to pause and listen to perspectives. I think that the cliche of just trying to have people that are more able or smarter or better at whatever the goal or challenge is that you've kind of set out for that day, moment, month, year, term. So I've
Hmm.
tried to do that. I think that has been an element of success. Um,
Hmm.
and these are terribly difficult jobs. I think people underestimate, and I can speak from a perspective. If you have, I'm one of the longest serving mayors maybe in the country.
Hmm.
Been through it since the early '90s, on and off. But whether it's this city, whether it's Waterbury, Hartford, New Haven, you could go down the list. These governmental, larger, challenging demographics are terribly complex, and they deal with the financial needs, they deal with the social needs concentrated in an area, and then they limit. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, the government system is limited in resources sometimes, in flexibility in order to meet the needs. So one of the biggest challenges, what I'd like to see, even as we move through what's a legislative session in Hartford, we're talking Connecticut politics, and the General Assembly is opened again. The governor has been reelected, and we have a new House and a new Senate. Is to again reemphasize with other urban leaders, with other local leaders, common challenges, how we can, as a state, position ourselves even in a better place. You know, I had to stop in a minute and let you ask this question, but I had life experiences certainly growing up, much of my childhood in Bridgeport, but also in a small town called Easton, Connecticut, which is about as opposite an experience. It's a suburban 3 acre zoning, farming, Christmas trees, cows, and all that. And you see
Hmm.
that part of Connecticut, which is so beautiful. And sometimes when people put up on the posters when they talk about, oh, you want to live in, bucolic Connecticut. Um, but we also have, and we have to remind, and it's my job and other mayors and the governor and legislators' jobs to remind people that we're kind of in this together, that the cities serve to a certain extent the needs of the greater region. We become the center for everything from hospitals. If God forbid you're sick, you're going to likely come to a place that has a big hospital or hospitals like Bridgeport. If you
Hmm.
have challenges, we're the seat of the law, of courthouses. Um, and the list goes on and on about how we serve. So part of the job in a bigger picture is to, I think, with other urban leaders, reemphasize that and the need so that we collectively can do better as a city, but as a state. And then we do our job on the local level, which I'll be happy to talk about some of the things that are going on here that I think are moving.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
keep going. So you grew up in Bridgeport, from like what ages, and then
So
how long
interesting.
were
Yeah,
you in Easton?
we
Yeah.
grew up big family, 7 brothers and sisters. Grew up,
Wow.
and then my family moved to, again. I don't know how many listeners are going to know about Easton. It's about 6,000 people. It's got one regional
Cows.
school. It's one of the regional school districts. My family actually has a Christmas tree farm up there,
Oh,
and the
wonderful.
nephews and nieces and grandkids for my parents do that. So it's a beautiful setting, but it's a contrast. And then I moved back as a matter of choice to Bridgeport when I thought I wanted to get involved. I came from a position where I thought I had the opportunity or the support to maybe get involved and maybe make a positive contribution to what I thought was a opportunity for Bridgeport at that time, which was literally, this was a long time ago, and well, Bridgeport was filed not under me but under my predecessor for
Hmm.
bankruptcy. So they stopped cashing city paychecks, and it was a terribly a depressing, terrible, and financially distressed time for the city, and there wasn't a lot of help coming in. That's when I took over.
Hmm.
So I had my hands full then, and with the help of so many others, we were able to kind of focus on what were the important priorities. Fiscal stability being one of them, public safety always being paramount. And if you don't have money to pay a police department, it's very hard to be able to respond appropriately to 911 calls or just police presence in the city, for example. Never mind trying to encourage maybe to come in, but even retain businesses and jobs in the city. So it's a terrible, difficult time. So I did have that opportunity. I would
Hmm.
tell a lot of people we fast forwarded to a much stabler, optimistic um, place for businesses, for residents, and families to raise their children. But now we're at a point, I think, again, coming out a little bit, call it pivoting out of COVID. I think we've laid the foundation. And this is probably the most optimistic that I've been about where the city is
Hmm.
and where it's going to be over the next 5 years in my entire career. You said 5 terms. I think it's seven, actually, because I have
Seven.
2 year terms and 4 year terms and all that kind of stuff. I don't make, doesn't really matter, but I think it's for your listeners that maybe know a little bit about Bridgeport, maybe know a little about me, that have kind of been at this for a long time, for better, for worse, good days and bad. And I think I kind of get it on how it works.
Hmm.
And you said it's a well-run city. It is a well-run city. And on top of being a well-run, you don't get credit for that. Nobody pats you on the back for just running this.
No, no, they
They want
focus
to see
on
that they want the other stuff. They
right.
want to say what they want to know that the impacts that you're having on improving the quality of education in one of, if not the largest school district in the state, which has students with the highest poverty levels and the biggest challenges on English first as a language, and what's the percentage that are graduating. Are we pushing that up? Are we working on that in every classroom with great dedicated teachers? Are we reducing the dropout rate? Are we providing alternatives, whether it's jobs in the city or a bridge to financing higher education, maybe at Connecticut's state college system and so on? They want to know about what you're doing when you have a city like this sitting on a great harbor and waterfront. Are we developing our waterfront to accentuate the positives on Connecticut's coast and as a center point for Bridgeport, which we are in a project called Steel Point, which is up and out and has boats there, and next to the music venue and the arena. And what are we doing in the neighborhoods to gather? I think what is that feeling of even in a big city, it's divided into I don't want to say divided negatively, but separated by neighborhoods in a positive way. And what are we doing as a community, as administration, to reinforce that and make people feel that sense of community and being a part of, I think, what is the progress in the city. All the while, we're underfunded
Hmm.
on a level. We're reduced to what's called, maybe too technical for listeners, but I think they'll get it. Reduced to a singular source of funding all of this generally, at least that we can control, which is called property taxes, which remain for all of our cities overly burdensome, disproportionately and regressively burdensome on our residents. But we work through that and we get to a point where we can talk today about, I think, not just what's going on positively, but what we have planned in the future.
Yeah, I think property taxes is a huge issue around the state, and it does fall unfairly in the cities where the mill rates have to be higher because there's more services to provide.
Well,
I
so you probably are not going to be happy you mentioned that, but
sure.
you're absolutely right. Not only is it more services, but you end up with, first, geographically, and this is probably true of all the cities, but I know it's true of Bridgeport because I know the numbers. We're only 17 square miles. So
Hmm.
geographically, if you compare it, let's use the Easton example again. There's probably, I don't know, 40 square miles in Easton. I'll make up the number. Maybe not developed, but less of a base in order to produce the revenue of property taxes that you need. Then you have tax exempt. We have a variety of churches which serve a huge place in our city, but they're tax exempt. we
Hmm.
have the hospitals, we have the courthouses, we have the trash energy plant, you have the all the public buildings that are not taxable either. So what happens is it forces a concentration to a higher degree on us, our residents. And so people don't like that. They don't want to pay more than the surrounding towns, and we feel strongly about that. So you're absolutely right. It's one of the challenges that we fight. I've been trying to fight every year since I've been in this job for a more equitable distribution of revenue to center cities that provide not only for the people with the greatest needs, but services for the region and the rest of the state.
Yeah, and I can say that over the last 10 years, I've seen Bridgeport shift. You mentioned the music venues and Steel Point um, and
The downtown
more.
development, the popping up of a lot of
Yeah.
many more restaurants to service those. We've done a
Hmm.
beautification, the beginnings of a beautification project with murals that change the face
It
of
really
an
did.
area in
Yeah.
downtown. When you do it right, when you allow artists to use my term, spread their wings with their paint, and you just respond with it in awe, seeing what they can do to transform the side of a building that you didn't want to look at anymore, and now your eyes gaze at it and you are like, wow, that's cool. Where am I? Yeah, wow, okay, we're down. We're driving through downtown, heading towards the amphitheater.
Yeah, and I think that the whole kind of vibe there is more, and how the question is, how do you take a city which was kind of written off, I think, long ago, and from changing from an industrial age and manufacturing base to the new economy, which um, doesn't have that type of tax base, like you're saying, uh, and move it into something that really is a place that people want to be, want to visit, want to come to, and want to live and raise their families. And I think you know all the cities have major challenges, but you can see the progress that you've been making down there.
Well,
And
we've had good, strong partners step up in the city. You're exactly right on
mhm,
those venues. I don't know if you know the name Howard Safan, but you probably know the name. You know the name Live Nation. You know Jimmy Copland,
sure,
and there are
sure.
partners, if you will, on one of the most exciting entertainment venues, if not the most exciting in the state. So that's one of them. But you're right. In a somewhat flattering, unflattering description, it's an old, some used to be called tired. I don't think it's tired anymore. I think it's got more excited, but gritty industrial
Mhm.
city that was the backbone or the center for everything that was needed in that whole turn of the need during for arms and factories and all that. That's changed. What we've tried to do to kind of answer what was almost a question by you in the transition, yes, there's physical structures. We've seen factories be converted into charter schools or schools in the city, or be taken over into cool artist housing. But with that, there's been an eye towards, again, the people that are smarter, certainly than me, or I think I am at my age, is young people, innovative people, people that talk like this more than we do, and are focusing and moving it much faster and trying to. So I guess I'm saying we're trying to encourage and have had some degree of success in encouraging young people to move into the city, into some of this cool housing, to be a part of the growth of downtown, some of the neighborhoods. Affordable housing, meaning by contrast to the expensive Fairfield County prices, is attractive, but our prices have gone up too. Our property
Mhm.
values have gone up, rents have gone up. So we're trying to work through the whole dynamic of changing housing, understanding that we have a commitment to affordable housing and public housing, but also to housing in general as the home to so many thousands, tens of thousands of people. And that's kind
I
of
think,
part of what we're working on with the transition.
yeah, I think also is you know cities that offer good services to people, to immigrants, to people just coming into America or to Connecticut, um, serve as a base because they, you know, largely you don't need a car as much in a city as you might somewhere else, right?
That's
So there's advantages to living in a city environment, and these are these people, these folks who are coming in, or new immigrants, really, are relying on those services, and a secure place to live, an affordable place to live. And that's what, we're protecting by helping to fund in the cities. And I think that when we talk about kind of regional taxation, and whether the suburbs should kind of pick up the tab, through the legislator, through the representatives, figuring out ways to fund pilot programs, a pilot which, brings the payment in lieu of taxes,
Yes.
and kind of a shared burden, just because the suburbs use the cities, for all kinds of, whether it's entertainment, whether it's shopping, whether it's business, whether they need the hospital or the court system, where all this stuff is located. So I am, even though I want low taxes always for folks, I think that there is a shared burden, and I think regionalization, and the COG, and the whole Council of Regional Governments thing, of trying to say, well, look, if you got a snowplow going past, hit these 3 streets here, and then we can, you know what I mean? There's
Sure.
there's ways to be more efficient in the way that we run things. And county governments are big in other parts of the country, and coalesce those services. I think we could do a better job there. What do
Yeah.
you think? Yeah, go aaof
No, you're exactly right. And if you've been around long enough, we hear the stories about when we had county government in Connecticut and how they were abolished, and all of that. I think what helps. So if we live in the challenge we have now, which is the structure, which I accept, I think one of our obligations is to continue to do everything that we're doing, make an exciting place for people to come. We had hundreds of thousands of people come into the city over the last couple of years because of the music venue. We we,
Mm.
we set it up with easy transportation, clean, safe, just outstanding. You can't find that opportunity anywhere, not just in Connecticut, beyond, to be a part of it. And then we're building, at this point, I guess I would say rebuilding some of our infrastructure, rebuilding bridges, investing. We're going to do the largest road improvement project, road paving project in the city's history, with some $10 million, because we like to pride ourselves on organizing financially good, sound government, and be able to apply resources where appropriate. Other things that people talk about, I don't want to run away from it because I think it's front and center sometimes. It makes the front page, or the lead on the news, is crime. And we have, I think, as a city, but I'll refer to us as a community, because in this instance, I think there's a real feeling of community, of coalescing around what is new leadership in our police department. I've appointed a dynamic new police chief. We took over several weeks ago. We appointed new captains yesterday. And
nice.
they're focusing on not only the integrity that I think we need to make sure that we have in every law enforcement officer, every law enforcement department in the country, because they're the guys that get to carry the guns, and are there to serve and protect when you call. But also, I think has demonstrated the connectivity that could and should exist between a department and citizens, residents, and neighborhoods. And so what we've seen, so rather than just me talking about how good it is and dynamic a person is, we've seen through that leadership, through the couple transitions now, a stark drop in crime statistics in pretty much all of the major categories. And on top of that, the reflection that I get out in the community, in other words, the feedback I get, is just that from residents. And you see it with so people need to know that not only are we developing our waterfront, do we have downtown housing going on, do we have murals and beautification projects, are we called the Park City? Bridgeport's the Park City because we have those, some the unknown jewels, Seaside Park, Beersley Park, both Frederick Law Olmsted designed parks in the city, and we have more of them in every neighborhood. You said the immigrants that come in, they go, oh my God, like when people live here, we're like the New Yorkers who don't go to the Statue of Liberty because we forget about how commonplace and how something in our backyard is so beautiful. But in addition to all the beauty, I like to say, and I know, unless you've come and experienced it, maybe you're saying, what's he talking about? All I do is drive through on I-95 and I see, this is what I see, is that feeling of a commitment to clean, safe, and then to accentuating the positive with the beauty that we have, and building. And while we do it, I'm committed over the next 5 years, as long as I am here, to making sure our next generation in our schools. So our priorities will be and continue to be in educating that next generation of Bridgeport leaders. Maybe somebody who can take over CT Politics TV in the future. Somebody could take
Yeah.
this seat in
Yeah.
the future. Someone could be,
Anytime now.
right, like sooner rather than later. I get excited when I see these young, dynamic people, and hopefully they
Oh
can
gosh.
involved in government or civic work or politics, to say, you're it. You're it. We just had one elected to, we had three of them actually elected to the Connecticut General Assembly, a state senator, and two state representatives, dynamic, all three men, all three actually African-American men from the city who understand
Nice.
the challenges, but come with a perspective, a background, some with a high level degree of focused education, and will provide, I think, that type of next generational leadership. And they're partnering now with members of the General Assembly, but are leading the charge in Bridgeport for what I hope will be the addressing the challenges that we want to face, or that we do face, and that we want to overcome. So it's to some degree, it's exciting by what's happening with bricks and mortar. It's a focus on holy moly. I don't know what the word I was going to, holy moly. They got to focus on, this guy says, that stuff about clean and safe, they get it. And they've got not only, I think, wheels in motion, but are looking long term to making sure that this city continues to succeed with the momentum that it has now and will continue.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged by the young talent in politics. I'm calling a lot of uh, politicians' offices and dealing with people in their early 20s and stuff. I talked to a young man at Senator Congressman Larson's office, and we had a discussion about national politics and Connecticut politics. And I was, you know, this young man's immersed in it at a high level, but I was really happy that he was very thoughtful. He understood issues, and so I think there's a lot of hope there in the younger generation. And somebody's got to carry the ball after we bow out of this thing, and it's not always an easy gig. Humanity has a way of being a little bit terse and
I like the word unforgiving.
Unforgiving, is it?
So I'm not really fair to say that I have my share of forgiveness, certainly, but these jobs can be on a day-to-day basis not only tremendously brutal, but somewhat unforgiving. So I'd ask them to really to one, understand it. You also have individuals that are expectedly are not tolerant of maybe pausing to understand the dynamics of, for instance, use my job or these city jobs, of a multi-cultural, a multi
approach
level, yeah, understanding dynamics, how important that is. And as we advance as a city, as a community, to understand that we want to make sure that everyone is a part of overcoming challenges and a part of success. So
I think I think that's where the public sometimes drops off. Is it's far more intricate, far more complex than people imagine. So when you're on the outside, they're like, well, why don't they just do this? I mean, it seems like the right thing to do. Well, because there's 10 different constituencies in this culture that have to get along and come to a consensus. And it might not be what you from the outside think is the right thing because you're not in there dealing with it, right?
And then the job of the mayor,
consensus, building consensus, and doing the right thing all have to come together. And so you're absolutely right, and it's hard to convey that, in a soundbite, unless you start to get into politics and say, "Oh, all right, I understand this now. I understand why people feel this way here and not over there." But on a macro level, I mean, you're you're at a visceral level in this thing where you're dealing this on a daily basis and navigating that, especially when there's people of many different backgrounds coming together, can be just unforgiving. I guess, right?
But it's
Well, Joe,
exciting. It's
yeah.
exciting. I pause and say this, but it's enjoyable.
Hmm.
The job. I think when you get positive feedback from people that, despite all the warts or scars or beatings that you kind of take to get to a point where you've tried to do something that impacts someone's life, and they respond to that, whether it's in a diner when you walk up, whether it's somehow in a letter, or someone says to you, "Hey, thanks." It makes you feel like, regardless, that the goals that you've set, and the effort that you put in are worthwhile and need to continue to be focused on. So that's what keeps me
Yeah,
going.
and just one of those letters kind of negates the hundreds of others
It's
of
so true.
people who have not thought it through, perhaps
The
as well as they
best
should.
ones, I don't know if you get them too, is the one that criticized you at some point, and you're like, "Oh shit, was he? Excuse me for swearing, but was he right?" In other words, I look at it, I said, maybe I was wrong on that. Maybe I didn't understand the extent of that end of the discussion, argument, or decision. And then maybe, if you get the follow up, which is rare, that says, "You know what, I was mad at you. I didn't like what you did, but you know what, either you were right, or I understand it now." And you get to that point where you're like, "Wow, okay." That's the kind of redeeming kind of reinforcement, I think, that keeps, I think, all of us going in our challenge. It certainly does me as mayor, as you said, of the largest city.
Yeah, and I think that the when you take the personality piece out, where people may feel this way or that way about me or whatever, and just say, well, look at the body of work, right? Um, look at what has been accomplished here, and then judge my job of how I've done based on that. Was I doing the right thing for everybody that I could, doing the best I could here? When COVID hit, we're, like you said, we're kind of, we're on the other side of it, but it's something that's going to be with us into the future, and God forbid we go through some other thing again like that. But those were very difficult times to be a leader, and a lot of people who didn't have the intestinal fortitude to push on dropped out. They said, look, this isn't for me. The legislature cleaned out because a lot of people just couldn't deal with um, residents who were scared and had feelings that things should go this way or that way. And anyways, Joe, I really appreciate you coming on.
No, I
And
appreciate the opportunity, and to challenge you to invite me back again, and we'll do it either in person or as we're
oh
doing
yeah,
through
I would
Zoom.
like to come down, actually, maybe shadow you for a day or something
I
and
was going to
shoot some
suggest bringing
videos.
you. Let's tour some of the stuff we talked about. Let's go to the
Yeah,
amphitheater. Let's take a look at what that venue likes. Let's show it to your viewers. Let's go to Seaside Park. Show them where
yeah,
Sound on Sound is going to be 300 acres on beautiful Long Island Sound. Let's show them the murals downtown and the housing that's being developed. Let's go to some of the neighborhoods and see some of the transitions that are happening in the neighborhoods, neighborhood focused, whether it's retail or housing, transformation of old, tired, dilapidated public housing into new, not only housing but centers for that neighborhood. I'm excited about it. Take you through some of the schools. We just built one of the most state of the art schools in the state, the new Harding High School, and have a new Bassick High School going up on the campus of the University of Bridgeport on the water here as well. So the synergy between that, somewhat different than Fairfield Prep, if you know Fairfield Prep and Fairfield University, but the
hmm
same thing where advanced, beyond high school courses can be taken and credited to Bridgeport students at Bassick High School, and create that bridge to an opportunity to higher education. Show
yeah.
you all of it, and it'll look good on camera.
No, no, I
Oh,
promise. We will set that up through your team sooner rather than later. And yeah, I think it's important that people see the work on the ground and then judge it for itself. I'm not beholden to any particular politician, but like I said, I want to show people that, look, there's stuff going on here that maybe you didn't consider, right? And that just because you might not like this personality or that personality. Look at what they're trying to accomplish here in a very difficult situation.
So well
But
put. I think, as you kind of subtly apply that, I think to some people's perspective, frankly, about me, I share that whatever you may have heard or things that I may have been a part of or done, certainly an element in viewing. But I think most importantly, when you're looking at someone in a position now, again, as in this case as mayor, certainly view me for how I take views, how I talk, how I walk, what I say, my past, but also look at it. I like to call it the progress or the commitment to making the progress continue, the job that we've done, with the ability to ensure that we have a well-run city that does address as best we can, working always every day to make it better. The needs. It's a city with great needs, the needs of our residents. And if you want to look at it and take a snapshot of an opinion, please include all that. And then if you really want a good opinion of what's going on in the city, come on down to the dam with you and I and come and see something.
yeah, I totally agree. And the ultimate test for any politician who is working hard and trying to get it done is being reelected by the people of that community, of that city, that said, you know what, um, despite what people may feel and things in the past, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're looking at as a result of progressive politics, moving things forward to make people's lives better. Now, if somebody can step up and convince those people that look, there's all these problems and blah 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 blah, and we could do it better. Well, let them take a shot at that. I mean, we're in a democracy,
Well,
right?
absolutely. You're exactly
Yeah,
I feel the same way. You
yeah.
look from the outside, it looks like it's easy. You want to try it?
Yeah, and to that end is, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, in terms of, look, it's all your life especially has been splayed out in front of everybody to see, front to back, and they keep having you back, they keep reelecting you for a reason. It's not because they don't like what you're doing, it's because they do like what you're doing. So anyways, I appreciate it, Joe. We went a little bit over, but
No,
I'm
it's
happy
perfect.
to.
Thank you.
I hope I didn't hold you up, and we'll talk again very soon, and we'll come down there with some cameras, and you can show me around and show me these different improvements you make, and what your city's about, and some of that fine restaurant Italian
All right,
food
we'll have
that you
lunch.
and I
I like
love so
that.
much. All right, that
All the
sounds
best. Thank you
good.
so much. Talk to you
All
again soon.
right,
Okay, bye-bye.
thank you, Joe. Joe Ganim, everyone. What a great interview that was, and I'm always just humbled myself by what a nice, humble person and Joe Ganim is, and that he puts his city first, and he's actually out there doing the work every day. So, regardless of the personality, regardless of the past and what you may think, look at the progress, right? Before, it was a tired, kind of rust belt industrial city. Now it's a vibrant art community, which is kind of coming of age in a number of ways. They have some waterfront, they have some parks and things that you should really get down there and take a look at. And we'll keep following along. I'll go down there and let's see. Let's have Joe prove it to us, right? We'll go down there and he can show me all the great restaurants. We can eat at every single one of them. Not I'll pay. Anyways, what a great interview, and I appreciate the mayor's time. I know he's very busy, but that's it for CT Politics TV for today, and I will catch you tomorrow. We have some great guests. Tomorrow is Joe Aguirre, and should be good. Joe's back in action.